everyone. As mentioned in the previous video, I'm learning to sew in order to make masks to help flatten the curve. And I thought about doing a tutorial on making a mask. The pattern that my mom and I are doing is the Olson Mask pattern. However, I'm not quite at that level yet where I could do a tutorial, so I asked if I could record her making a mask, and she agreed to it. And so the following video is actually mostly featuring her making the mask and also giving some tips and tricks for what she's done to modify the mask to make it easier or a little more efficient for her making a mask. So I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
So this is the underside, right? So that's the right side, this is the underside. So just, if you want to this is the easier way to do it. That's not the way I do it. I usually do. So about a quarter of an inch. And then the same thing with this. Make sure I have the right side up. So this time it's like that. If you're not that confident in sewing, you can pin it or you can iron it ahead of time. Get it to be the right width. That's one option. Do you want to see the second option at the same time?
Sure.
Okay. And then I need another set of nose and cheek pieces. Okay. Is to do what's called narrow hem. And this you fold it. Instead of folding it 1/4 of an inch, you fold 1/8 of an inch, and then you roll it. So it's also kind of like it's a narrow hem or a rolled hem. There's the term for this. And also, it makes a cleaner edge. Then you don't have the raw edge at the end. But most people can't do this without pinning, or a lot of people. If you're not an experienced sewer, then you won't be able to do this without pinning. But it makes for a cleaner edge like that, see? After a while, you get a feel for how the material is going to lie, and you just know that if you hold it at a certain pressure on it, it's going to stay. is the right size, this is the wrong side. Okay, so now if you want to pin it, you can. I don't normally. And this is like sewing at 1/4 of an inch. And then the pattern doesn't call for this, but I do this anyways because it makes it's easier for the nose part to, because of the roundness here, you want to do two things. If you want to, you can trim away some of the excess material here. Also, what I also do is I will do a top stitch. So I open it up like this, and it makes a nice round, it makes the nose part nice and round. So I just go like this and I so here, all this entire seam allowance is on this side. Okay, so it's like this. So make the seam allowance is on here, and then you're catching all the layers of the seam allowance at the same time as you're stitching really close to the sewn edge. Also, this is probably easier if you pin it, if you're not a very experienced sewer. But once you've done this, then you really don't need to iron, because now you've got a nice flat seam here. Right, so it's like that. Mm-hmm. That's what you do for that. And then you do the same thing for the nose piece. So I'll take this one, the one that I just finished, and you put the wrong sides together, the right sides together. Did I do this wrong? I did. Nope, no, did not. That's right. That's right. So also when you do the top stitching like that, you don't have to worry about doing the back stitch,
Okay.
because this will keep it from, the second line of stitching will keep it from coming apart. It reinforces the other stitching. Okay. And same thing. So you notice I'm starting from the bottom each time, because that would mean that when I put them together, then one piece will have all of the entire seam allowance on one side, and the other one will have it on the other side, and that will make a flatter thing when you're turning. So same thing. There's the nice smooth nose part too. Okay. Like that. Okay, so now we just take the other pieces and wrong side, right side to right side. You want to line up the stitching like this, right? Then if you want to, you can pin it. I don't. And then, so actually working from this side is better. So it's always the nose piece down first. Okay, same thing here, lining up the seams, seam to seam. You can pin it. Then make sure that these line up. There's a little bit of difference in the cutting, but once you sew it, you're not going to be able to tell. And make sure that it's nice and smooth. Go like that. Same thing here. Okay, then before you do the rest, you would put the sheet pieces on, and you look for the corners, the two corners being the same, because you see this corner, these corners are actually more angled. Oh, actually, no, this one. These two corner pieces are the same. That's more angled. It's very hard to tell. You can't always tell. But there is a difference. So if you were to do it the other way, you can tell by just looking at it that they're not really lined up.
Yeah.
So this goes on this side. You just make sure that it meets here. And that meets there. Just reuse this pin. same thing on the other side. Okay. Okay, then you can just start anywhere. I usually start about middle on the top. 1/4 inch. So that lines up there. So till it overlaps about by an inch or so. Then get rid of all the extra threads. You don't have to because it's going to be inside out anyways, but this is just tidier. Sometimes I don't. And then ideally you should cut away some of the excess fabric here so that the corners don't have all the material bunching. Not too close, because if you get too close, then when you turn it, the corner's actually going to come apart.
Okay.
And some people will actually, when they get closer to the corner, they actually make their stitches shorter, so it's a tighter stitch. But if you don't do that, then you just have to be really careful when you turn it, that you don't accidentally push the entire corner inside out, and then you'll have raw material coming through. So So then turn it inside out like this. I usually put my thumb in here and I go like this, so that I can get most of the corner all the way turned around. Just turn it around like that. So it's still kind of round in here, so you can do something, you know, use that something else to poke the corner out, or so there. And then on the other side, make sure you get your finger in as tight as possible and poke it through like that. Then you can use this blunt knitting needle, or like this, and you can just push it out a little bit more gently as to not break the corner. This one is already pretty good, so you just kind of like that. That's one way. Or else, if you don't have a knitting needle, then on this side what you would do is you would take a pin and just gently pull it out little by little. Use your thumbnail to keep pulling the material out, so that's the nice corner there. Same thing on this side. What you're trying to do is just, there's material punched out inside. You're trying to just encourage it to come out a little bit more, and then you got a nice corner there too. That doesn't have to be perfect because this part is folded in anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So then you turn the nose piece up inside out. And that's the way it looks. So the important thing is to make sure that the top is to the top, like this. Like otherwise, so the important thing is to make sure that you check the bump. Check the bump here to make sure that when you have that it has to be like this. See? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, if you have it the other way, if you turn it this way, it's not going to lie flat. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So if your mask looks like it's all kind of not this nice curve, it's because you may have gone this way. Okay. And so I usually iron it now, so now we just make sure that the edges are pulled out as much as possible, so you know you don't want any material kind of tucked inside the seam there. You want to just the seam to be pretty much the very edge of the mask. So that's how you iron it that way. And sometimes it's easier to, for me anyways, it's easier to turn it around and come at it this way. If you're right-handed, it's easier doing it this way. And then get the edges first, and then you do the center. And then do the other side this way. Again, get the seam out as far as you can, because that's going to make a nice clean edge, and it's going to help keep its shape. Because otherwise, if you have part of if your seam is not fully ironed out like this, you're going to have material tucked in there, and then you're going to have one side shorter than the other or narrower than the other. And now that I've got the edges all nice and clean, I will iron the whole thing with the tip of my iron in here to make sure that the seams are nice and flat. And here to make sure the seams are nice and flat. And then this is already pretty nice, but you can then kind of turn it this way as well and do another iron. Like that. So that's it.
Very nice.
So it needs to be about hair elastic size, right? So it's about like this. This is the size of a hair elastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to give it a little bit more space, because what I'm doing is I'm tying a knot. So it ends up being about 8 inches long.
Okay.
Okay, if you're going to tie it. Need the scissors. It's a little harder to do with the snips. Okay, so you can either do it when it's tied, which is a little harder. I can show them how to do it this way. So I do a knot like this, and then I do another knot like this. So before you tighten it, it looks like that. Like that. And then you just tighten it and just gently. You don't want to tighten it too fast, because then the ends will come out. So I kind of try to make the knot as tight as possible, oops, without untying the knot. That's one way to do it. So if they have, this will be, I can show how you do it with, if you get an elastic hair tie.
Okay.
But I'll do the other one, which is actually, other way, which is actually easier. So fold it over like this. You can either, if this is easier, you fold it over like this, and then you sew. You sew, and then it ends up looking like that, right?
Yep.
Or, instead of doing that, you can fold it like this, sew along. Actually, you can even just fold it like this, sew this. Then stick this in afterwards, then tie it, and then move the knot into underneath here. So in these, that's what I did. The knot is actually hidden inside here. And now the knot is on the outside. It makes it easier to sew. And if you tie it after you've sewn it, that's even better. And then you just push it in there and keep pushing it in until it's 100% hidden. Okay. Then you sew like that. So that's around, so this is the nose part. So if we look at this, this is the edge that we sew it on. So we sew here. So it's about, it's a little more than 1/4 of an inch. So I leave that much space. So, back space. Back stitch rather. And then back stitch. Oops, hopefully I didn't cut that. Okay, so that's that. And always go back and cut where you first started, so you don't forget later. So there's the line there. Okay. This is actually, it's a 16 gauge wire. So this piece is about, it's about 4 inches, maybe a little bit more than 4 inches. This is my piece that I use for measuring, so I'm gonna cut a piece. Okay, then I take, and I don't want the wire to poke anybody, so I turn it around like this. And then I turn around the other way. And then sometimes when you're twisting, it ends up being a little bit uneven, so you go like this. And straighten it out. Then, where is the one I just made? Got this one. Okay, so now got that. And I will go in through, usually this side. And try to make sure I get through here. Okay. Sometimes it's a little tricky. And I try to center it like that. So you can see the two ends. Then I take this like that. That way it stays in the center. This is, that's it.
And then your final product
Looks like this.